Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Let me try to introduce myself. My name is Bayu Kusumawardana, and now I would like to present my presentations. The title is about avoiding plagiarism using mentally, and this is the task of middle test of my class, which is academic writing for academic paper. Well, now when we talk about plagiarisms in Indonesia, especially in Indonesia universities, like it's not always about students intentionally trying to cheat. It in many cases the real problem is that they simply don't have a proper system for managing their references. They get overwhelmed with so many searches. They don't know how to track them, and sometimes a small mistake in citations ends up looking like plagiarisms. Well, and this is exactly where Mendeley becomes incredibly useful. It's not just a digital library where we store articles, it actually helps us work more efficiently and more ethically. With Mendeley, everything is organized automatically, and when we write, the citations come out accurately without us having to format them manually. So, the point I want to emphasize here, Mendeley is not just a tool. It's a foundation for building academic integrity, and it reduces accidental plagiarisms by making the research process structured, clean, and reliable. Okay, I have several literature reviews, and the first we have findings from Patak and Tahir in 2019, and this study gives us a very important lens for understanding why plagiarism actually happens in Indonesian's higher education. What they highlight is that plagiarism is often misunderstood. Many people assume students plagiarize because they intentionally want to commit misconduct, but according to their findings, that's not really the case. They argue that plagiarism mostly comes for practical barriers, meaning obstacles that students face during the learning and writing process, not from deliberate intentions. But I think this is a very crucial distinction because it shifts our perspective from blaming students to understand what kinds of challenges they are dealing with. If we look at the first barrier methods here, time constraints, this is something almost every student can relate to. Students often have overlapping deadlines, probably part-time jobs or responsibilities at home. Because of these competing pressures, they rush through their assignments, and when someone rushes, the details like probably citations accuracy or tracking the source of each idea easily get ignored. So sometimes plagiarisms happen simply because students run out of time, not because they wanted to cheat. And the second point is a lack of motivations. This doesn't mean students are lazy. What their researchers found is that many students not deeply engaged with academic standard because they have never been properly taught why does things matter. If students don't feel connected to purpose of academic writing, or if they don't understand the long-term value of doing things ethically, then naturally their motivations drops. And when motivations drops, to effort to cite correctly of correctly or cross-check searches also decreases. And we have the third barrier right here is about organizational challenges. And honestly, this is one of the biggest issues. When students deal with too many searches, dozens of PDFs, website, books, they often get confused about where each idea originally comes from. Some students take notes on their phones, some in random documents, some in screenshot. Over time, the information becomes scattered. And when everything is disorganized, it becomes extremely difficult to track proper citations that when accidental plagiarisms occurs, even if the student never meant to copy anything. So what Patak and Tahir are telling us through this study is that plagiarism should be seen as a systemic issue caused by pressures, lack of understanding, and lack of proper tools. And that is why the last line on the slide mentions that all these problems are actually solvable. Uh, they can be addressed with better academic support system and the right technological tools. And in other words, instead of assuming students are acting with bad intentions, we should recognize the real everyday challenges they face. And once we understand these challenges, we can design better interventions such as training, workshop, and of course using reference management tools like Mendeley, and absolutely helping students avoid plagiarisms more effectively. Okay. Then we come to this one. On this slide, we have findings from Augustine's and Opora's 2025 study, which gives us a clearer picture of what students actually understand about plagiarism, and more importantly, how that understanding translates into real behavior. The first is about 85% of the students surveyed are aware of plagiarism rules. This means most students already know that consequences. They understand what the plagiarism is, and they know the institutional policies, and they are aware the academic integrity is really essential. So awareness is not the main problem. Then we see 72% of students are able to paraphrase, and that means they can actually rewrite ideas from sources in their own words. So technically, they already have the skill needed to avoid plagiarisms. They are not lacking the ability. But then 50% here, um, most critical number appears on this third circle. 50% of students still show a gap between what they know and what they actually do. This is what the study calls the knowledge behavior gap. And this gap is extremely essential. What this tells us is that even though students now they know the rules, and even though they have the skills in real research, they don't always apply them consistently. So plagiarism happens not because students lack awareness or competence, but because there is a disconnect between understanding and real world behavior. Okay, there are many possible reasons for this gap. Sometimes students panic under pressure, then sometimes they don't have enough confidence in their paraphrasing. Sometimes they rely too much on copying because they think it saves time. And other times they simply forget to cite properly when they are writing too fast. So the issue isn't purely about knowledge. It's about habit, confidence, and the environment in which students are producing their academic work. And what interesting is that this study reinforces the idea that improving academic integrity is not only about teaching rules, it's also about building consistent writing habits, providing guidance during the writing process, and giving students tools that make ethical behavior easier to perform. Because even if students know the right thing, if the writing process is messy or stressful, the chance of inconsistent behavior is still very, very high. So this slide basically reminds us that the challenge is not awareness. The challenge is implementation. Students know what to do, and but they need support to make sure their actions are aligned with their knowledge, especially when they are working under pressure. Okay. Next, we have our third slide. On this slide, we are looking at a finding from Ahmad and colleagues in 2022. Their study examined a group of Malaysians and graduates, and what they discovered is quite interesting, especially when we compare it to common assumptions about plagiarism. What I found is that there are no significant gender differences when it comes to plagiarism awareness or attitudes. In other words, male and female students demonstrate similar levels of understanding regarding plagiarism rules and academic integrity standards. So, the issue of plagiarism isn't influenced by gender at all. But the study does even deeper. It also shows that awareness of academic integrity is consistent across different institutions, which means regardless of what university students come from, their basic understanding of plagiarism tends to be quite similar. And this is important because it tells us that the challenges we see are not tied to certain groups of students. They are not due to gender, personality, or individual traits. Instead, the issue is institutional. Um, that brings us to the implications written on the slide. Since the challenges are system-wide, the solutions must also be system-wide too. This means institutions cannot rely on targeting specific demographics or assuming one group is more vulnerable to progress than another. Instead, universities need to build strong institutional systems, then provide consistent support and make academic integrity training part of the learning environment for everyone. Okay. Um, so the big message from this study is that plagiarism is not a student problem belonging to a specific group. It's an institutional responsibility. It requires commitment from universities to create a learning ecosystem that supports ethical writing, provides the right tools, and ensures all students receiving the same level of guidance. When institutions take the lead, then academic integrity becomes a shared culture, not just individual expectations. Okay, hopefully you understand what I explained. And right now is about we have finding from Salija, Hidayat, and Patak in 2016 that was quite old, 9 years ago, but that's all right. This part really illustrates why Mendeley is considered such as a powerful tool, not only for researchers, but also for students who are still developing their academic writing skill. The researchers in the field, Indonesians academic who constantly search how Mendeley improved to overall quality of their research workflow. The first benefit highlight on the slide is organized research Mendeley centralizes everything instead of having your articles and screenshot in your gallery or notes written randomly across the document. Mentally keep all your searches in a single accessibility system. This like what I mean that this eliminates of problem of losing references. and or forgetting where certain informations come from. And when your success or are organized from the beginning, the writing process becomes much more structured and efficient. The second major improvement is accurate citations. One of the biggest sources of plagiarisms, especially unintentional plagiarisms, comes from incorrect or missing citations. What Mendeley does is automate this entire process with just a few clicks. You can insert citations and generate full references, and they are in the correct academic format. Then this ensures that your attributions is always correct and consistent, no matter how many sources you use. And this level of accuracy is difficult to maintain manually, especially when you are writing under pressures. The third is about reduced error. So when researchers really solely our manual citations, the margin error is extremely high. Yeah, it's easy to miss a stations, forget a patch number, or accidentally paraphrase without proper attributions. Mendeley prevents these mistakes by managing searches systematically. This means many how the small citations error that could unintentionally appear as plagiarism simply don't have because uh, the system organizes everything for you. Well, what this research tells us is that Mendeley doesn't just make writing easier, it directly protects users from unintentional plagiarisms by improving the entire research workflow, from organizing references to citing accurately to reducing human error. Mendeley acts as a built-in academic safety net. Okay, and for students, especially those who are still learning how to write academically, and the kind of structure is incredibly valuable. It supports them really and guides them and ensures that ethical writing practice become a normal part of their process. Okay, we are coming to the next slide. uh, on this slide, we have a study from Kokinaki, Demaleo, and Lakavido in 2015. Surveyed more than 300 students across universities in Cyprus. And what they found is very revealing because it shows that even in more established academic environments, students still struggle with fundamental concepts of plagiarism. The first major issue highlighted here is misunderstanding nuances. Many students couldn't recognize what counts as self-plagiarism, and they also didn't fully understand that incomplete paraphrasing can still be considered plagiarism. This means that students often believe that changing a few words is enough, that's all. But actually, proper paraphrasing requires recognized ideas and truly rewriting and the meaning in their own words. Then, so the confusion here is not about intentions, it's about not fully grasping the finer rules of academic writing. The second issue is about citations confusions. Student is the like student in the study tended to use references simply to strengthen their arguments instead of using them to genuinely credit the original authors. In other words, they show citations as a tool to look academic, not as a way to acknowledge intellectual ownership. This creates a huge gap between how citations should functions ethically and how students actually apply them in practice. And in the third point is a digital awareness gap. Many students had limited knowledge of plagiarism detection tools, not only because they lack interest, but also because universities implemented these tools inconsistently. So students were not exposed to Turnitin-like systems in a clear, systematic way, and then the result, they didn't fully understand that how plagiarism is detected, why using detection why using detection software, and what about their learning process. So that was really difficult. Okay, then taken together, these findings show that plagiarism misunderstandings are not just an Indonesian's problem, but also they are globally. Even in Europe context, students face similar challenges, which is misunderstanding the rules, then misusing citations, and lacking awarenesses of digital tools. And what that tells us is that academic integrity requires continuous education. Students need guidance, clear instructions, and consistent institutional support to understand not only the rules of plagiarisms, but the reasoning behind those regulations or those rules. So this slide really emphasizes that plagiarism is a complex issue. It's not only about preventing cheating, but also it's helping students develop a deeper, more nuanced understanding of ethical writing. Okay, we continue to the next slide. Now, this seventh slide, we are looking at the bigger picture of how academic integrity can actually be stand. The ideas here, there are three, and okay, all right. The, that avoiding plagiarism is not just about giving students a tool like Mendeley and expecting everything to improve automatically. Instead, the research shows that real impact comes when three essential pillars work together in synergistic way. Okay, the first pillar is about technology. That's really common. This is where Mendeley plays its biggest role. Technology absolutely helps students organize their searches, manage references properly, and ensure citations accuracy. When students have a reliable system that handles this technical aspect for them, the risks for unintentional plagiarisms becomes much lower. Technology and absolutely provides the structure and efficiency that students often lack when they rely solely on manual citations. Then, otherwise, technology itself is not enough. That's why the second pillar, which is pedagogy, this refers to the teaching and learning aspect. Students need proper training. Training on how to cite and how to paraphrase, how to evaluate sources, and how to understand the principles of academic integrity. Even the best tools will not work effectively if students don't know why this practice matters and or probably how to apply them correctly. So pedagogy builds the mindset and the skills behind ethical academically and behind ethical academic work also. Then we have the third pillars, which is administrations. Yeah, you can see that the strong policies, enforcement, and consistent supervisions. Um, this is about institution itself, strong policies, clear enforcement, then consistent supervisions. When universities create an environment that truly supports academic integrity, students feel guided, not punished, and institutional commitment ensures the rules are applied fairly. Plagiarism detection tools are used consistently, and students receive ongoing support throughout their studies. So when these three pillars which are technology, pedagogy, and administrations, work hand in hand. They form a strong foundations where integrity can actually thrive. It's not just about preventing plagiarisms, it's about building a culture that encourages honesty, responsibility, and high quality academic writing. In other words, academic integrity doesn't grow from a single intervention, it grows from a system, and this slide shows us what that system looks like. A balance of tools, training, and institutional support. Okay, we come to the next slide. Now this slide highlights something very essential: the gaps in current research. Even though we have many studies discussing plagiarisms and the use of tools like Mendeley, there are still several major areas that have not been explored. Yeah, I mean the explorations also not been deeply enough, and if we want to improve academic integrity in a more effective way, these gaps need to be addressed. First, research gap is about quantifying plagiarism reductions. Right now, most studies, I mean, rely heavily on self-reports, meaning students or researchers simply claim that plagiarism decreased after using Mendeley, but self-reports are not always reliable. What we really need is solid empirical data, or for instance, like actually measurements showing how plagiarism level changed in institutions that implement Mendeley. We need a baselines comparisons and the ability to track progress over time. Without this, we cannot confidently say how effective Mendeley truly is in reducing plagiarism. The second gap is assessing training impact. It's not enough to just give students access to tools or workshops. We need to know which specific types of training actually work. Do students benefit more from hands-on workshops and video tutorials, one-on-one, I think, then one-on-one mentoring too, and integrated writing, and what level of support leads to observable improvements in academic integrity? Understanding this will help universities design training programs that are targeted, efficient, and effective. And the third gap is tracking long-term efficacy. Many interventions look successful in the short term because students may improve right after training. But the real question is whether this improvement lasts. What is that? Like, do students continue applying proper citations, paraphrasing techniques, and ethical research behavior after months or even years? Do these habits remain consistent across different subjects and assignments? Long-term tracking is essential to ensure that the benefit of training don't disappear once the semester ends. So overall, this slide reminds us that although we already know a lot about plagiarisms and academic integrity, there is still significant work to be done. We need stronger data, better evaluations of training strategies, and long-term monitoring to fully understand what truly works and what doesn't. And once these research gaps are addressed, institutions will be able to implement more evidence-based strategies for building academic integrity in a sustainable way. Okay, then we come to the next slide. On this slide, we are focusing on what it actually takes to implement Mendeley effectively in Indonesian higher education. And the key message here is that success cannot rely on technology alone. Even though Mendeley is a powerful tool,
It needs to be supported by strong institutional system so that students can use it to its full potential. The first element shown here is clear communications. Institutions need to articulate their plagiarism policies very clearly. Students must understand what counts as acceptable and unacceptable academic practices, and this clarity should be communicated early, ideally at the beginning of every semester, so students know exactly what standard they are expecting to follow. Without clear guidelines, even the best tools can be misused. Because like the students will be anxious about how to apply proper citations or academic ethics, and the second element is comprehensive training. This is like crucial really, right? Mendeley cannot just be introduced until left for students to figure out on their own. And universities need structured workshops and hands-on practice sessions and continuous support for both students and faculty. Many students may know how to download Mendeley but not how to organize folders, generate stations, or probably sync libraries properly. Training ensures that users are not just aware of tool but are actually competent in using it for attributions and referencing. And the third element is consistent enforcement. This means that institutions must apply their academic integrity standards uniformly. The rules cannot change depending on the lecturer of probably the course, and the situations when policies are enforced consistently, then students see that academic integrity is not optional, it's a part of the culture. This also builds trust because students understand that everyone is held to the same standard. There is a fairness and how academic violations are handled. So overall, this slide emphasizes the implementing Mendeley is not a one-step process. It requires a coordinated approach, clear communications, and proper training and consistent enforcement. When these components come together, institutions can create a learning environment where Mendeley becomes truly effective, not just as a station tool, but as a part of a broader commitment to academic integrity. In short, technology provides the foundations, but the institutions provide the structures that supports ethical academic behavior. Well, everyone, this one, the references that I have used and tried to explain to all of you with my presentation. Okay, yeah, what's important here that's all the insight we talk about today are not just opinions, okay? They are grounded in impartial studies, scientific researches, cross-institution surveys, and comparative analysis. This means the challenges we see, whether it's a misunderstanding plagiarisms, probably a lack of motivations, organizational difficulties, or inconsistent training. Yeah, I think that's documented by scholars in the field. All right. At the same time, the solutions we discuss from building strong academic integrity, then the integrity system to providing comprehensive training and consistent policies are also backed by evidence. And okay, hopefully it can be meaningful to all of us. Well, I'm so sorry if yeah, I mean like as a person, as a someone who person these things, yeah, absolutely. I was quite nervous and you need more discussion. Just contact me, okay? Well, at the same time, the solutions we discussed from building strong academic integrity systems to providing comprehensive training and consistent policies are, yeah, again, are also backed by evidence. So with this, I'd like to conclude the presentation. Thank you so much for your attentions, and hopefully the insight we explored today can inspire stronger academic than better institutional support and more effective use of tools like Mendeley in our educational environment. And thank you so much for this class also that can give me opportunity to present the presentations like today. And I hope that Mem Mega can give me the good score for this challenge and this middle test. Thank you so much and see you soon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you all.